Hi, and welcome to the Knit Shift, episode 13. Today is Friday, June 19th, 2015, and my name is Laura. Welcome back if you're a returning viewer, and hi if you are new here. This is a knitting podcast. I talk about knitting, lots of yarn, and my dog, basically. So, yeah, hi, welcome. Thank you for spending some time with me today. I know there's a lot of knitting podcasts out there, so thanks for hanging out. I'm sorry, I'm drinking left-handed, so you can't see my mug design here. Let me flip it around. Pancakes make people happy. This is a fact. This is actually a mug I got for my boyfriend for Christmas because he is all about the pancakes. Don't give him waffles, don't give him French toast. He's all about the pancakes. So, yeah, and I just love the little I love these kind of mugs that have that kind of retro shape to them, you know, where the sides are kind of curved in the middle. So, yeah. And I'm just drinking English breakfast tea. To be honest, this is really early for me. It's almost 10 o'clock, but I've been up since about 6, and I work the night shift, and I didn't go to bed until almost 2, and then my boyfriend got up and went out of town this morning he got up at 5:30, and I was awake at 5:36. So I'm dragging, hoping the tea will perk me up while he's out of town. He'll be back tomorrow. I have a day of vegging and watching Netflix, like Orange is the New Black, and knitting, obviously. So it'll be a good day. Just me and the dog. If all goes to plan, I'm waiting on a text message back, but I live in Southeast Virginia, and he's about 90 minutes north in Richmond today and tomorrow. And if we play our cards right and we can get our dog walkers tomorrow, I'm going to take the Amtrak tomorrow morning to DC, and when he gets done around lunchtime, I'm going to he'll drive up to DC and meet me, and we will go to the Washington Nationals baseball game. They are playing my hometown team, the Pittsburgh Pirates. I lived in Pittsburgh till I was 18 and went away to college, so the Pirates will always be my team, even though I don't really follow baseball a whole lot, but I am very loyal to my hometown team. So I'm hoping it works out. I have my phone in front of me with my show notes, but I'll be checking to see if the dog walker texts me back. So it all kind of hinges on that. So we'll see. But it's been a good week around here. What has been going on? Oh, I didn't give you the spiel about where I am on the interwebs. I'm Laura Mahalski on Instagram. I'm Yarnstormer on Ravelry. We have a Ravelry group for the podcast. Just do a search for the Knit Shift and you'll find us. We have a knit along going on there, which I'll tell you about later. And show notes can be found at theknitshift.com. So there. That's podcast stuff over. So it's been a good week around here. Last Friday before when I filmed, I told you I needed to rally to go out Friday to a graduation party and for drinks with a friend, and I did rally in the end. I had a nice time at the grad party, and then I met my friends for martinis, which was really fun, and there's a tapas bar in downtown Norfolk, and we're all fans of the TV show Empire, starring Taraji P. Henson and Terrence Howard. And so we went to a tapas bar called Empire, so it was just kind of fun, and we had martinis, and I don't do that kind of thing too much, so we had snacks and really good drinks and just had a good old time. So it was really a nice time. And then Saturday night, I went to see Jurassic World with my boyfriend. There's a theater in Portsmouth, Virginia, which is just through the tunnel from me, that has a one-screen theater that is like a restored Art Deco style, and it's just really pretty, and it's got chandeliers and really cool murals on the wall, and it was restored a few years ago to look how it did in the 30s, and there's dining tables, like the floor is dining tables, and then they have like the traditional audience style seating, like I can't think of what it's called, but not where nowadays theaters have the steps, it's a much more, as opposed to the slight rise, in older theaters that you see. I'm blank. Stadium seating. There it is. Again, why I'm drinking tea. Um, but it's really cool. We have a table we like in the back corner, so you have to go and buy tickets when the box office opens at noon, and you have to reserve your table. So Josh went and reserved our favorite table, and we just had snacks. We had gone out to eat elsewhere first, but I had a piece of apple pie there that was delicious with ice cream. And Jurassic World was good. It's just kind of a big dumb summer movie. I didn't agree with its rather stereotypical views of the lead character. She's this hardened career woman. She's ignoring her nephews who were there. And, of course, by the end of the movie, she's soft-hearted and, and sexy and all that. And she runs through the jungle in 4-inch heels the entire movie, which is just ridiculous because I can't walk in heels. So how did she run through the jungle away from dinosaurs? But anyway, it's a fun movie. I would definitely go see it again. I am team Chris Pratt. Definitely okay with him in all the dino movies he wants to be in. So, so I did that. And then this, was it yesterday? It felt like yesterday. Wednesday. I'm a volunteer driver for the American Cancer Society. There's a program called Road to Recovery where if people need a ride to their appointments or chemo or radiation, they can call the 800 number for the Cancer Society, and there are people who drive them to appointments, and I'm one of them, and I've been doing it for about 3 years. I try and do it twice a month, but it often just works out that it's less than that for me because I'm always late. I get emails like, here's a bunch of dates, and then I have to get my work schedule, and by the time I reply, half of the shifts are gone by. It's mostly retired folks who do this. I'm on the younger side of people who do this, but because I work like 4 to midnight, I have my days free, so I can do this kind of thing. So I really enjoy it. And I drove a gentleman. It's the farthest drive I've ever had to do for the program. I went from where I live in Norfolk, 25 miles to Suffolk, and then 30 miles back to Norfolk for his appointment. And then I drove him home to Suffolk, and then I had to get home. So I ended up using almost half a tank of gas when all was said and done. And 25 miles doesn't seem like a lot. Everything in Norfolk is all really close to each other, so I think we're all spoiled here in Norfolk because, at most it's 35 minutes to get to the ocean. That's the furthest east you can go from my house, or 20 minutes to Chesapeake, but everything I need is in a 10-minute radius for me, which is kind of nice. But yeah, it was a very good drive, but one of the reasons I like doing it, beyond the obvious helping people who need to get to important doctor's appointments, is when I wait while they're in the appointment, I can sit and knit. So I sit in the waiting room, and so I had a lot of time to knit this week because I got the man to his appointment early, and then it ran late. So I had an extra amount of knitting time, which was great. And I'll put a link to Road to Recovery in the show notes, just since I mentioned it. My dad had cancer a few years ago, and he's cancer free. It's been 4.5 years. We are very, very lucky. He had colon cancer, and he didn't need chemo. He didn't need radiation, and I am very thankful every day that he's healthy and recovered, and he had a warning sign that something was wrong, so that's how we found out that he had it. And I think of the support, he had, and it makes me really sad that there are people that either, they might be living alone, they don't have any family in the area, or, you might have family in the area, but they're busy working, or a lot of people, you can't drive yourself to these appointments because you're just not well. These treatments take a lot out of you, so I really feel like it's one of the best things. It's one of the most gratifying things, I guess I would say, I've done in a while, but I don't normally talk about it too much. Some people, in fact, I mentioned it at work to some people they saw I have a sticker in my car that says road to recovery volunteer driver in the back window of my car, and they were like, what's that about? So I told them this week, and they were like, oh man, I had no idea. And so I'm doing it a while. I really like it, and yeah, so that's that. So enough talk about my week. Let's get on to the knitting. Despite having a lot of time to knit, I don't have a lot of projects to show you. I have one project to show you, but I made a lot of progress on it. So let me put the microphone down and pick it up. I'm holding the microphone this week. I'm finding that the volume is a little better that way, but it's a little tricky to maneuver with one hand. So I'm carrying this sock project around. This is a bag from Ashley of Nomadic Yarns. It's a little sock bag. It's perfectly sized for a sock. Let me pull this out. Oh geez, I got the yarn stuck in the zipper. Oh, there, got it. Last week I had I was right here on this sock. I had literally just turned the heel, and thanks to Jurassic World, I was able to knit and almost finish the sock, and then I finished it off like last Sunday. So this is Online Super Sock 100 walking, and the heel is a bit of contrasting Fleece Artist BFL. So I knit these toe up. I did Judy's Magic cast on, and I cast on, I believe, 16 stitches per needle, so 32 stitches. I increased every round, and then I cut it to about every third round. So really, I wanted to give it like a nice round toe box. So I'm really happy with how it turned out. That's the first time I've done that. I increased, so it's 64 stitches around. I went straight up the foot, and then I did a Fish Lips Kiss heel. I should have put this on the sock blocker. And then resumed knitting with the Online Super Sock, and then about 30 rounds of 2x2 ribbing up at the top and bound off. So that's it. And that's not it, actually, because I cast on its mate, and I can't believe this. I knit more than half a sock. Really, I knit a sock in a week. I just knit the top of this sock and the bottom of this sock. So I did the same thing over here with the toe, with the toe, and knit up the foot, and I did the heel turn before I drove the gentleman to his appointment Wednesday, and I basically knit all of this leg, most of it while I was waiting for him, and then I wasn't feeling well yesterday, so I worked from home. So I mostly sat on the couch all day until I had to work, and I knit quite a bit more on the leg. So I should be, this stitch marker, I'll tell you about in a minute, but I should be able to finish this tonight, especially if I do all of the Netflix watching that I plan to. So one of the things that I like, I'll talk about knitting one at a time versus two at a time socks in a second. But when I knit one at a time, one of the things I like to do to keep track of where I am is, I have to know the number of rounds both on the foot and on the leg before I start the ribbing, so that I can replicate it in the second sock. So I generally knit my sock toes all the same way. I cast on 32. I usually increase every third round. But this time I did the increase for like 5 rounds in a row, every round, and then I cut it to every third round. So I generally keep the toe the same in each sock. I kind of have, in every single sock I knit, So I don't really need to think about that when I cast on the second sock. But I do need to know the number between the end of the toe and the start of the heel. So I get that number in my head, and I have to remember it for the second sock. And then after I finish the heel, I have to know how many stitches of stockinette are up here on the leg before I start the ribbing. And then, of course, I need to know the number of ribbing rounds. So it's basically this number and that number that I have to keep in mind. And I try to knit the second sock very quickly after the first because I don't like to lose momentum. I'm not going to remember where I was after, a few months break. And I like to finish my socks together. I'm not someone that I don't get second sock syndrome, I have to say. So as I'm knitting the second sock, I can tell that I'm nowhere near the heel. But when I start to get close, I finally do count the number of rows. And I count, so like let's say, I think this had 75 rounds on the foot from here down to here, to the toe. I start counting the rounds when I feel like I'm getting about 2/3 done. And I use the stitch marker to mark an even, like a multiple of 10. So let's say I count and I had 55 rounds. I will put that marker in at the 50 round mark. Keep knitting for a while. Know that I have 10 more rounds. Count again. I know this is round 50. Count to 10. Move the stitch marker up 10 rounds to 60. And, then I knit some more and move it to 70. And then I know once the marker's at 70, I only need the 5 more rounds. So that way you don't have to keep counting over and over and over again how many rounds you have. So I do the same on the leg of the sock. I hope that made sense, by the way. If not, send me a message or post it in Rav and I'll try and explain more deeply. So I'm doing the same here. So I knit for a while and thought, I better measure and see where I am. So so I am at, I believe this is the marker for 40. I can't remember now. See, this is the thing. Like I marked it overnight and now I can't remember. I think it's about 40. And I think I have 57 rounds on the leg, so I don't have much more to go. But I really like this yarn. This is one of those merino nylon blends that are like 75-25. It's a German sock yarn. They wear like iron, and I really like them for socks. I like the self-striping. It's tans. It's like a nice beige color, tan, darker brown, medium brown, and then it's this nice sagey green, white speckled with sage. And I'm knitting these for my grandma, actually. She'll be 93 in a few weeks, so I will get these done in time. Yes! And these are just her colors, I think, this lovely sage green and the peach heel. So I've never knit her a pair of socks, so she is long overdue for them. So yeah, I will definitely have these finished next week. If not, you can come over and punch me in the arm because there's no reason I shouldn't finish these. But this is the only thing I've been working on. I have not been touching the baby sweater I'm knitting for our knit along, the Baby Knits knit along, which I'll talk about in a second. But I am itching to cast on more socks. I'm a sock knitter through and through. I'm on like 110, 120 pairs now over the past 7 or 8 years. I think it's true love. This is not a flirtation with sock knitting. And I've knit a lot of them one at a time, and I've knit one at a time, and then I've knit a lot of them 2 at a time on a long circular with magic loop. And if you aren't a sock knitter, there's virtues to each of them. When you knit them one at a time, they knit up a lot faster because it's just the one sock, which is kind of a common sense thing. And when you knit 2 at a time, it's slower going because you're going around and around, but on 2 different objects at the same time on the same needle, so it just takes you twice as long. So you get the instant gratification when you knit 1 sock at a time, which is nice. Maybe you need that kind of motivation. But on the other hand, 2 at a time means you don't have to. You don't have to. What? Blah, 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 blah. I'm sorry. 2 at a time means when you finish it, you're finished with the project. You've knit both socks. You don't need to. You're done. See, this is why I need more caffeine, you guys. I'm not finding my words today. 2 at a time. What you do to one, you do to the other. You don't have to take notes. unless you want to replicate it on another pair of socks 6 months from now. But you don't have to take notes. It's less thinking generally, I guess I would say. So I go through phases. I've been in a very strong 2 at a time phase for a while, but the pair that I have on the needles right now that's 2 at a time, I have not touched in a good 3 or 4 weeks. I will pick them up after I finish these socks because I often like to just finish up projects to clear the needles, so to say. But, being able to knit this sock in like a week and a half, like this was great. So I might have to just keep one pair going that's 2 at a time and another pair going that is 1 at a time. And I think each of those will kind of meet my needs sock knitting wise. So that's what I have to say about socks for today. So moving on to the knit along we have going in our RAV group. It's a baby knit along. It runs from June 1st to August 31st. So you've got plenty of time to knock out some baby knits if there's babies or children in your life that you need to knit for or want to knit for. Baby projects or projects for children count. It doesn't have to be only newborn or, small sizes. The only real thing that's excluded is baby socks because they're so tiny. If there's a really intricate pair of baby booties or something, that's probably okay. But that's about it. Those are the only requirements, and we have a thread going on Ravelry for the chatter, where we can chat about our projects, and then we have a thread that's devoted only to photos of the finished objects. And it's looking good. I meant to bring the iPad in here to show off more projects, but I'll just save that for next week. I showed the first 12 or 13 projects on last week's episode. But there's even more. There's blankets. There's really cute hats. My mom knit her first Fair Isle project. It's a sweet little red and white hat. She knit it in 48 hours, so go Mom. But sorry, Mom, you aren't eligible for the prize. I feel like that wouldn't be fair. I'll message you about this after in case you don't see this. So keep the baby knits coming. I'm hoping to knock out the baby sweater I have on the needles very soon after I finish these socks from my grandma, and then I have some more baby knits to get going on, so keep them coming. Oh, and there are prizes. There's a skein of Malabrigo Machita, which is a single ply fingering weight yarn in a beautiful colorway that is in my yarn room, so sorry about that. I'll show it again next week. It was on last week's episode. And those are the deets on the knit along. Let's see, what else did I have to mention? Oh, and there's also a prize of a needle keeper, which I bought one for my mom, and it's sitting right here. My mom's is green, the one for the giveaway is black, but it looks like a magic wand, and you stick your needles in. There's a little slit right here, if you can see it. Yeah. There's a little slit, and it keeps your needles safe, and they won't fall off. This nice little silicone end piece here will keep the needles secure. It's really lovely, really cool. My yarn store has been selling them like hotcakes. So that'll be a prize as well. So on to spinning, which is, there's nothing of it right now. No spinning this week. I'm contemplating picking it up again, picking up my drop spindle for the Tour de Fleece, which, if you aren't familiar, is an event on Ravelry that is tied to the Tour de France, which is 3 weeks in July. I don't know the exact dates, but it's usually the first Saturday in July through the 3 Saturdays or Sundays later. And I'm apart from the idea of the Tour de Fleece, I'm a big cycling fan. When I was in high school, I had a pen pal who, she was in England, and we were pen pals throughout middle school, throughout high school, and then she visited me after my junior year of high school. And then when I graduated from high school, I went to visit her in England, and her dad is an amateur. He's a cycling fan, and he's an amateur cyclist himself, and we drove from their house in northern England to the south of France, and her dad, I went on vacation with them basically, and her dad competed in a bike race in the Pyrenees, and we got to see 2 days of the Tour de France in 2005. Yeah, 2005. So that was when Lance Armstrong was at his peak doping years, apparently, but there he was, and it was just, that's what got me into cycling, and I think it's a really interesting sport. I hate that there's so much doping, there's so much cheating going on, but what these people do to cycle, it's basically like running a marathon a day for 3 weeks, and that's crazy impressive, because we drove through a lot of the mountains in the Pyrenees that the cyclists went over. There's some especially well-known mountains for the Tour, and I mean there are just these hairpin turns. And we parked, when we went to one of the days of the Tour, we parked at the bottom of a mountain and walked up like maybe a kilometer. And it's July, it's the middle of the day. They don't do this at 6 in the morning to give these guys a break from the sun. A lot of times the race doesn't begin until noon. So they're coming through these places in July heat, 3 in the afternoon, sun's beating down, it's 90 degrees, it's hot as heck. So it was a hike, literally. It was tough just to walk up the side of a road for a kilometer, because these roads are so steep, and the fact that people propel themselves on a bike at 20, 30 miles an hour is just insane to me. So they're really amazing athletes. And anyway, that was a tangent about the Tour de France, but I'm contemplating participating in the Tour de Fleece and working to improve my consistency and have that be my goal, and maybe spin every day for 15 minutes a day, and that I think would really give me some good progress with spinning. So we'll see if that happens. I'll check back next week. What else? I have no stash enhancement this week. Nothing to share there. But that brings us to odds and ends, which I've been excited to talk about, because I have some, they really are odds and ends this week. I wanted to tell you about a new online yarn business that I came across through Instagram, and it's called Twig and Horn, and it's created by the founder of the yarn company Quince & Company, and she apparently decided to start a needlecraft supply company that is all American made, and American people made the products, that kind of thing, which is pretty admirable. So it's very small right now. They literally have 3 products in the shop. They have a wool wash, they have a wool tote bag, and they have a gauge ruler, basically. It's one of those square wooden ones, so you can measure in the middle of the square, your gauge swatch. But it's that's a new thing, so check it out. If they have like 4 or 5, I almost said flavors of wool wash, but you know what I mean, scents of wool wash, and they all sound really good. I haven't made an order there, but thought I'd pass along the info. And I have a link to share in the show notes that I cannot do justice for with my description, but I will try. This link came to me courtesy of my boyfriend, who is well trained in my knowledge for anything yarn or knitting related. And he sent this to me. He found it on Boing Boing, which is a website for tech news. And it's pegged to, there was this big video game event called E3 this week, where there are new demos of new video games. And apparently there is a new video game coming out called Unravel, where you are a ball of yarn, the player in the game, the protagonist, and you basically are going along and unraveling as you go, and when you reach the end of the ball, that is the end of your life, which sounds really depressing, to knitters and probably to all people. The ball of yarn is a metaphor for life, but you can use your yarn to navigate things and use it to loop up on a tree branch, or jump over something, or pull something to you. It just sounds really interesting. There's a preview of the game on the website, but the Boing Boing article talks about this about this video game, and it kind of uses that as a lens to talk about the history of yarn in video games. And going back to, like, Nintendo's, there were games that involved yarn. And they have screenshots from them. You know, they talk about there was going to be a Nintendo knitting machine that tied... It was like a machine knitting tied to the video game. Never took off, apparently. I don't know why. But it's a really cool article, so please go to theknitshift.com and check out the link there to this Boing Boing article about yarn video games. And finally, our final odd and or end of the week is a podcast I wanted to tell you about. And it's not a knitting podcast. Shock, horror. I can't believe I'm sharing that with you, but it's not, and it's awesome. It's an audio podcast, and it's called The Mystery Show, and it's hosted by a woman named Starlee Kine, and she is someone who has appeared on This American Life before and NPR, and she has a very unique voice. You don't think about radio operators having a lisp, but she has a little lisp. It's not distracting, you know, she has a very good radio voice, and it's a very unique one. But the point of the show is it's called Mystery Show, and she is setting out each week to solve a mystery. And it could be, you know, and she's inviting people to write in and send her mysteries, and she'll try and solve them for the show. And I'm sure she will be overwhelmed and won't be able to solve all of them. But there are 4 episodes so far. I've listened to the first 3, and I listened to them in reverse. Well, I listened to episode 3 first. Again, I found this via my boyfriend, and we listened to episode 3 when we were in the car together, and we listened to about half of it, and I almost wanted to keep driving another half hour, just drive around town to listen to it. But we didn't do that. Of course, we came upstairs when we got home, and we just listened to it, you know, sitting in the living room on the iPhone. Sorry, I'm doing laundry. There's the dryer going off. But the 3rd episode, I don't want to give too much away, but it's wonderful. And I'll tell you about the mystery in the 1st episode. Obviously, I won't tell you how she solves it or if she solves it, any of them. But the first mystery is a woman who, she lives in New York, and this happened about 10 years ago. She lives in New York. She goes to rent a movie from a video shop near her apartment. She'd never been to this video shop before. It's a Friday night, fills out a new membership card, and rents the video, and she hates the movie. It's Must Love Dogs. She remembers exactly what movie it is. She goes to return it the very next morning, and the video shop is gone. Like, literally nothing is left in the business. It's the doors are closed, the shelving is gone, everything is gone in the store, and she's thinking, was I asleep? Did I dream this? I couldn't have dreamed this because I have this DVD in my hand. So Starlee, the host, helps her, you know, goes about helping her figure this out. And she basically, it's not like Starlee works with you. Starlee takes your information and then goes and solves it herself. And she gets into the process of it, and I would say episode 3 was my favorite, then episode 2, and then episode 1. So if the idea of a video store that ups and disappears overnight doesn't interest you, just know that episodes 2 and 3 are actually better. Episode 3 was just awesome. Episode 3 is the first to involve a found object. You know how you find treasure when you're a little kid, or you find something in an attic that predates when your family lived there, or it's a possession of your grandparents or something, just something that's old and becomes mysterious to you. That's what episode 3 is about, and I loved it. And I'm not a big podcast listener. I listen to America's Test Kitchen because I like how they do stuff on that show, and I don't really listen to This American Life. Honestly, I'd rather be watching knitting podcasts than listen to audio podcasts, because I hear a lot about the news through my job at a newspaper, so I don't listen to newsy podcasts. That might make me a bad journalist, but so be it. I would rather do knitting podcasts, basically, and watch those. So I, without a doubt, will be continuing to listen to this. She's doing these weekly or every 8 days or so. They come out on Fridays, so I'm going to listen to... I had told Josh that I wanted to listen to episode 4 together. Like, I wanted it to be our thing. But since he's out of town this weekend, I might just go ahead and listen to it myself today and listen to the new one when it comes out. So, sorry, Josh. Not that you'll see this. So that is it for my odds and ends of the week. And that's it for the show. This ran on a little longer than 30 minutes, which is cool. So please join us in the Ravelry group. Look me up again on Instagram as Lara Michalski, on Ravelry as Yarnstormer. Thanks for spending some time with me today. I really do appreciate it. I know there's a lot of knitting podcasts out there, so it means a lot to have you guys watching this. So come join our conversation on Ravelry, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye!